Hey, fellow Voyagers. Aaron here. Before we get started this episode, just a quick little apology, I guess. Apparently, he's having some problems. It's in the shop being repaired. And due to that, the audio didn't come out as well as it normally does. We've got the Omni repaired for the most part. So hopefully we won't have this issue again. But yeah, the audio on here is not quite as crisp as it should be. I apologize for that in advance. Thank you guys that are still with us. And let's go ahead and get started on VoyagersCast episode 19. Hello there, fellow Voyagers. My name is Aaron Moss. With me is my wife, Michelle Moss. And this is VoyagersCast, a Headcast Network 20-episode maxi-series podcast where we look at the greatest time travel show of the early 80s, Voyagers. Joining us on this monthly expedition through time will be several of my podcasting friends and fellow Voyagers. Each month we look at an episode of Voyagers and give you our thoughts. So let's take a look and see where we're landing this time.
Green light, kid. We did it.
And welcome to VoyagersCast. This is episode 19. And as usual, I am one of your hosts, Aaron, Brotherhead Moss. But once again, I am not alone. Joining me, as usual, is my beautiful wife, Michelle.
Hello.
So we're back. I know there's been delays here and there, and things haven't been on time. I apologize for that, but I'm working on that. So a good news, bad news situation. Good news is we're back. Bad news, well, I guess it depends on if you like the show and the podcast or not. So we're down to the final 2 episodes of the show, of the Voyager show itself, and probably the last 4 episodes of the podcast. So we're cutting up to an end. Well, we got 2 episodes left. This is episode 19, which is this one.
Yeah.
And episode 20 is the last episode of the show.
Uh-huh.
And then I want to do a episode on Voyagers of the Unknown, which really took a couple episodes and added together for a TV thing and added on some weird beginning thing. And so we'll talk about that a little bit. And then do a final episode.
Oh, okay.
Our thoughts with the whole series and things like that.
Oh, okay. Sounds good.
Let me see if I can,
I'm for it.
let me see if we can Lee on here that episode or something, or some of the old people we used to have on here before we started doing this at midnight. Our time.
So that was when you have kids.
But, so we got like 4 episodes left of the show. So, as I said, episode 19 of Voyagers. This is entitled Barriers of Sound. This first premiered on June the 12th of 1983. I was 13. You were 6?
6?
5? It was in June of 83, so you're at 5 or 6.
That was before my birthday, so probably 5.
Yep. This episode, in Denison, Texas, on October the 14th, 1890, Bogg and Jeffrey discovered that the telephone has not been invented. If the telephone is not invented, then Dwight D. Eisenhower, a.k.a. Ike, will not be born, as there will be no medical assistance. Thus, they travel to Boston in 1875, where Bogg saves the life of a deaf woman named Mabel Hubbard. They find Alexander Graham Bell, but his invention, the telephone, does not work. Jeff realizes that Mabel will be Bell's wife and arranges a meeting, but Mabel and Bogg fall in love with each other instead. To avoid compromising his mission, Bogg reluctantly breaks Mabel's heart. He and Jeffrey then go to March 7th, 1876, where Bell and Thomas A. Watson are working on the phone. When Bell injures himself and screams, "Mr. Watson, come here, I want you." Watson, hearing Bell's voice on the telephone, jumps for joy, knowing they succeeded. Back in Texas in 1890, Bogg and Jeff help guarantee the birth of Dwight Eisenhower by getting assistance from a doctor on the phone. And that is Barriers of Sound. So, again, as we've talked about previously, I have seen this one a couple of times when it first aired and then a couple times since then. Michelle, this is your first time, second time because we watched it once, but it's been probably a couple months ago.
Oh, if more.
Since we watched it, so.
Why don't you give your opinion first?
All right, I will give my opinion first. Like I said, I like most of these episodes, so I enjoyed this one. I do. I mean, there was some looking up online. There was some wrongness, I guess, some technical issues with it.
What do you mean?
Some factual issues. Well, for instance, I was looking online, and apparently Mabel and Mabel and Belle started dating around 1873, 2 years before they got together in this episode.
But I mean, if you think about it, there's a lot of well,
there is, but it's not.
In the show.
And it doesn't ruin it for me. It's some things I found because I was looking it up because we were talking to my daughter was in here when we were watching and we were talking, and
she was calling him a pedophile.
Yeah, she was asking, "Is he a pedophile? Is Bogg a pedophile?" Because she mentioned she just turned 18 and. All these old guys in their 30s. She
never mentioned she was 18. I mentioned she might be.
Well, that's what your daughter said, though. She said she's 18. Oh. And that'd be about right, because I did the math, and in 1873, when she and Belle started dating, she was 16. So in 1875, when this episode took place, she would have been about 18.
Was she actually his student in real life?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and again, it wasn't like my daughter's like, well, she was 8, because there were about 10 years difference in their age. My daughter's like, well, she's 8 and he's 18. That's it. Well, no, he wasn't teaching, junior high or, grade school. He was teaching older kids. So it's not that creepy. A little creepy, but not that creepy.
Well, and then I explained to her, I was like, well, your great-grandfather married your grandmother when she was in 8th grade. So, I mean...
Heck, Michelle had kids when she was in 8th grade.
No.
I'm sorry, my boys were born when she was in 8th grade.
I would have had in 8th grade. There's a big difference in
my older boys, so...
From his previous marriage.
Or is it? No, I'm just... But yeah, so, and again, it was, like we said, like I say, about the 80s, all this weird stuff, and I watch a lot of music videos. And my daughter's like...
Over again.
And my daughter's like, what the hell, Dad? It was the 80s. You can't judge. Same thing. It was the 1800s. You can't judge them.
It's funny because you say that, and I find it funny because the 70s were such a crazy time. You look at it like, oh, it was the 70s. But really, if you look at, music television, it was the 80s. Things that are in those videos are so weird, odd. Some of them can be very, what's the word I'm looking for? Disturbing. But also would never, ever fly nowadays. I mean, there was a lot of stuff on TV back in the day that would never fly today because of how woke and snowflakey people are.
How far to the left we've gone.
Yes. But it's funny because I say that, but music lyrics have gotten a lot worse.
Right.
But the videos too, because if you look at some of the videos, some of them
that's
really blow my mind.
I have to kind of disagree to an extent.
When I said that, my brain kind of did a loop-de-loop.
So I was talking to Michelle. I was asking her if she's heard any complaints or anything because I got wondering. Milli Vanilli's, I think it's Baby Don't Forget My Number, I want to say. I was watching that music video, and in there is a couple of seconds of an old cartoon.
Black and white.
Yeah, it was a black and white cartoon. It was back probably in the 50s or 60s.
Betty Boop era, I would say.
Of a Japanese guy getting on the phone. But this was very... And I'm more middle of the road with some left leanings, but this was very, very stereotypical Japanese.
It reminds me of something they would have put out during World War II.
And that's probably where this came from, now we talk about it.
To make the Japanese race or Japanese people look negative. And it was very... It's the equivalent probably to blackface, the way I see it.
No, yeah, it is. Very much was.
That's the level of how horrible that cartoon was in that music video.
So,
I've never noticed it. It's funny how not desensitized, but unless sometimes when someone points something out to you because it's not something that's on your radar that you see. I know we're going way off topic in this show, but
it happens.
Yeah, but yeah. So, anyways, Bogg and the technical stuff.
Oh, but yeah. So I was just, and that's where I got off track with it. Was So in the show, she was about 18 in this episode.
Okay. And
in real life, though, they'd already been dating 2 years. So, and again, it wasn't a horrible. I can't watch this episode now. It's just something I looked up and okay, that's interesting. Just a thought I wanted to throw out there. But I enjoyed this episode. Again, as you pointed out as we're watching it, Bogg falls for another hot blonde.
I think she's probably the prettiest one of like all of the episodes.
I was looking it up to see who it was. Her name's Lou Mulford. And she was an actress. And apparently she gave up acting for a while to raise her kids.
Oh, so she's just a mom.
So she acted. She started acting in 1979 on the Rockford Files. Mm-hmm. She had an appearance. And she did a few episodes here and there of shows. She was in Annie as the secretary.
Huh.
And then right after Annie, she did this episode of Voyagers. Yeah, she did like half a dozen episodes. I guess she was a model on Deal of the Century.
Oh, wow.
One of those old TV shows.
I love that
from the late 70s, early 80s.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was, I think it was early 80s.
Let me make you a deal.
Wrong one, but...
Oh.
That's Let's Make a Deal for Money Hall.
Oh.
This was Deal of the Century, but...
Oh. Deal of the Century. I don't know. That's not good.
Yeah, I guess she was a model on there.
Okay.
Yeah, because I got curious. I was looking her up, and she acted until 1987. She was on something called The Unknown Comedy Show.
Oh.
And then that
sounds like something I need to look up. We need to write that down. In fact, I'm going to write that down right now.
She was on ER, Night Patrol.
Show.
Yeah, The Unknown Comedy Show from 1987. And then she vanished, in quotes, from Hollywood until 2003.
Oh, wow.
And I was looking, apparently, yeah, she took some time off to raise her daughters.
Oh.
Be a mom and...
Good for her.
And then she's done not a lot, she's done a few things since then. Leverage, Mad Men, Cougar Town. Dozen shows here and there. But she's not doing a whole lot of acting. She does some writing. She's got a website I was looking at earlier. But anyways, I'm getting off topic again, as I want to do. But yeah, no, overall, I enjoyed this episode. I do like, Alexander Graham Bell and his interactions with Watson. Again, they had more than one leap. They originally left in Eisenhower as a baby, but they were only there for a few minutes to find out that they couldn't get a hold of the doctor. And then they leapt to 1875, and they jumped ahead almost a year, to 1876 when the telephone was invented to make sure everything was on track. And then they leapt back to 1890 to witness Eisenhower being born.
Okay.
So most of the episode was in one time frame.
Right.
Yeah, overall, I liked it. I do like that. Yeah, they left it originally, and they were talking to the neighbor, and he's like, well, we got, we're having problems. They're having problems with the baby, and I call me in the telegraph. No, on the phone. What the heck are you talking about? And they realized I was wrong.
Did you
at that point
say something about a pixel?
I don't think so.
I think he said something about a pixel.
I don't think he said pixel.
Maybe pickle?
Pickle, maybe. I'll have to rewatch that scene now.
He said pixel, and I'm like, huh?
Yeah, I don't think he said pixel.
Yeah, I'm wondering.
Because pixel wasn't even really a thing in 82.
No, it wasn't.
So.
That's what threw me off. I was like, wow. So.
Unless he really was a time traveler. Anyways. So, Michelle.
Yeah.
Thoughts?
So, I have very mixed feelings on this episode. And I didn't mention anything to you while we were watching because I kind of wanted to keep...
Right. That's fine. That's why I'd rather have it.
Have more of a reaction. So...
What?
Well, first of all, like I said, she was probably my favorite girl. And my son is the same way where we're very particular about our leading ladies. Like, there's certain qualities I like. And I liked that she was soft. She was pretty. I liked her hair. All the things that, like, are superficial that I like. However, and I liked her acting. I had a couple questions because if she was as deaf as she was, and unless they have like cochlear implants and that kind of thing, usually there's some form of tonal thing that you would hear in their voice because they can't hear themselves and
right.
They can't hear sounds and stuff.
Well, so, I don't think the actress isn't deaf, so I mean...
I know that, but I'm saying the character itself.
So I think that was the best, in quotes, deaf accent.
I didn't hear anything. That's the thing.
Oh, see, I did. I could hear the...
It was too light for me then.
Yeah, see, I
think you were too giving on that one.
No, I could hear she had... And again, I'm assuming it was her acting. I don't think it was her actual voice.
Watch her and see if it's something else.
Because she had that bit of because I used to know this one gal when I was younger that was deaf. When I was 18, 19, 20, something like that. Mm-hmm. And I was a friend of Billy's, I think. But yeah, she was deaf, and she had that same type of hers a little more pronounced than hers.
Nasally.
Yeah, it sounded like they're talking like this.
Yeah.
Kind of, yeah. So now I caught that coming from her. So
see, I didn't, and that bothered me. But that wasn't really what bothered me the most. So for me, I felt like this was a very, very rushed episode where, certain things had to take place in a certain amount of time as far as the relationship goes. And, Bogg falls in love with everything that has something between their legs. But, he's like, I never told anybody I loved him before. And
every other episode you're telling someone you love them.
I'm like, no. I felt like Bogg and Maybelle there was a chemistry between the two it flowed nicely. And when they were, sitting and eating cake and stuff, and I'm like, oh boy, he's making her laugh. Don't make her laugh, Bogg, because that's hook, line, and sinker for most females. If you can give them attention, you talk to them, you get to know them, and you make them laugh, we're petty in your hands. Like, it's a big one, making girls laugh. At least, it works for you. So, but I felt like it was a little rushed. And I'm wondering if Maybelle... And
Mabel.
I felt like...
It's Mabel.
Mabel, sorry.
No problem.
I feel like Mabel... She annoyed me with her viewpoints on relationships. I get how much she was burned.
Right.
However, she was young to be burned that many times. But not saying... Back then, females were marrying a lot earlier in life.
Well, and also, her young age could affect her outlook on...
Yes, but... it didn't sit well with me for some reason. As a female, it didn't sit well with me. But also another thing and I was thinking about it, Jeffrey was telling Alexander, hey, you need to date this girl because maybe if she falls in love with you, she'll fund your thing. I know that when he opened the door and he looked at her, he instantly, there was like that
connection.
That va-va-va-boom connection.
Love at first sight.
Yeah, kind of, and they both had it.
Right.
So it kind of put a Band-Aid on that for me, but still in the back of my mind, I was like, that's kind of like a shitty way to want to date somebody. Do you see what I'm talking about?
Right, and
maybe I've seen too many like Hollywood movies where the girl finds out, like the prom. Like, I asked her to the prom because we had a bet. That kind of,
And I see where you're coming from. Coming from Jeffrey's point of view, he knows that they were going to fall in love. He knows they're going to get married. And he was just trying to find out. And,
to rush it. It was rushed.
Well, because Belle was concentrating on his projects.
Right.
And so Jeffrey was trying to find it because he's like, well, if he would have been like, I want you to date this girl and you guys can fall in love and get married. He's like, well, I don't have time for that. But so Jeffrey kind of wrapped it in something.
So Daddy's got money, so hook up with this chick. And no, like, that made me feel
I don't know.
I didn't like Alexander for that. However, he seemed very inept when it came to the ladies, so he kind of got a pass a little bit from me. But,
and that's why Jeffrey had to wrap it like that, is because he was busy. Also, he's got not as much charm as I do.
I wish that they would have spent more time showing Alexander and her talking, or even like the 80s montage that they do, showing them spending some time together and getting to know each other a little bit more. I think I would have bought into that relationship.
Well, as far as spending more time, they didn't have it as far as the show-wise.
Because they had to rush everything. Because
they only had 42 minutes or whatever it was to get all this in.
Yeah, it was rushed.
As far as the 80s montage, keep in mind this was the early 80s, so I don't know if that was really a thing at the time.
It was. It's been in the couple of
I guess so, yeah.
Like the one where he goes.
I guess you're right. Okay, just gonna shut up.
I just even if it was like a 5-second montage,
right?
Like a little quick, blah, 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 and then she leaves. But when Bogg had to be mean to her, it reminded me of like somebody releasing an animal into the forest. Go, be gone! I don't want to be with you no more. I hate you.
Right?
And that sucked. But then it sounded like, I'm like, did he sleep with her? Because, you told me you loved me last night, and I
don't think it was that
I know he didn't, but I'm just saying it was just a little too much. Like, she was a little too much. He was a little too much. Alexander was a little too little. You know, it felt awkward. The flow of it felt a little awkward. The interactions were a little awkward. I liked the story. I liked the concept. I liked the show. I mean, I would give it like maybe a C+. It wasn't my favorite, but it wasn't my least favorite.
So I'd give it at least a B myself. But so you talked about Mabel, but Lou, the actress that played Mabel.
Right.
What'd you think of the guy that played Alexander Graham Bell? And I'm vamping as I'm trying to pull it back up on.
I want to know what nationality he was.
Who?
Alexander Graham Bell, the actor.
Okay, because Alexander Graham Bell himself, and that's one thing that in the on IMDb and the goofs on here.
Yeah.
In here he had an American accent, but it said that Alexander Graham himself was like Scottish.
That's what I was kind of wondering.
So yeah, but I think the actor was an American. It was Kip Gilman was the actor that played him.
But he looked, even though he was an American actor, his nationality or his ancestry didn't look very Alexander Graham Bell to me. Scottish.
Right.
I was like, he could have been Basque or something, or like had Spaniard in him, or some kind of other nationality that did not scream Alexander Graham Bell to me.
Yeah, IMDb says, Alexander Graham Bell is depicted as having an American accent. While he lived in the United States for many years, he was actually born and raised in Scotland.
So it would have been more like Braveheart than...
Yeah.
You know, so
So he should have more of an accent.
You know, so there was that. Another thing, I liked Watson, though. Watson just kind of had like those little sideline thing.
Right, he was just there as a supporting character.
Yeah. What else can I say? It really bugged me that all of a sudden Jeffrey, in like the 19th episode, decided now to have rain to fall from the sky.
So if you haven't watched this, go watch it. But yeah, when it starts out, Jeffrey's got a helmet and
he's got football
elbow pads
from
on,
like 1910 or something like that.
So and
1920s or 40s.
So and it took a while to figure out. Well, and maybe it's not football. Maybe it's boxing gear.
I don't know.
The reason I say that is because the previous episode, again, for us, it's been a while since we talked about it.
Right.
But the previous episode was All Fall Down, where they had to convince Joe Louis not to give up fighting, the boxer. So maybe he snagged some gear from Joe Louis where they took off, and that's what he wore to land here. Just a thought.
There could be a possibility, but why now? Why the 19th? I mean, okay, maybe because he didn't have boxing gear, but they didn't change outfits through the whole 19 episodes, even though he grew and got older.
Spoilers.
What?
I'm pretty sure next episode, he's not wearing it.
So
it's just
left
this
it there.
This one off episode, he wears the gear when they're landing.
It irritated me so much. I looked at Aaron and said, I hope he falls on the pavement. That's just kind of dumb.
Yeah, it was. I'll give you that. It was silly for them to introduce it this one episode, the second to the last episode, and then not to have it again the next episode.
Just not that, but not to have any mentions through the whole series about, man, that felt hurt.
Well, actually, no, they have mentioned that several times.
Well, he said he's rubbed himself, but I'm like,
yeah, there's been many episodes where they mentioned about how that hurt and how they wish the landing were softer. And
yes, the landing was softer. I just feel like, why now is he trying to protect his body from falling?
He's a kid. Kids aren't very smart. You've got two yourself.
Are you kidding me? This is the savant of history in itself.
Right, but just because he's smart on history doesn't. Yeah, he's got book smarts, not street smarts.
I don't know. I think he is pretty darn street smart. If you think about it, he's from probably the Bronx or Brooklyn,
something like that, New York.
He was, yeah. Now the kid had street smarts, and you know by some of the things how he's behaved in the show. Right. So I give Jeffrey more credit than that. But
it was silly to introduce her for the one episode.
Yeah.
19 episodes long.
Yep. Completely agree with that.
But I'm thinking they knew that the end was in sight because, again, like I said not originally, but at one time, episode 13 was supposed to be the last episode.
Mm-hmm.
The trial of Phineas Bogg. And John Hexam, from what I understand, put a lot of his own money in to make it go further. So they knew they were working on borrowed time. So they knew the end was coming up. So maybe that's, I don't know. But I do agree with you, that waiting so long to introduce that and then only use one episode was kind of silly. Okay, so we have Alexander Graham Bell discovering the telephone. Any thoughts on him discovering the telephone and Jeffrey and them helping him out with that? Any particular thoughts?
I feel like in other episodes, they seemed more useful than this one. I felt like it was just like the dating game. I don't know.
And that's mainly what it was that they were mainly had to help him. He needed the funding. Again, as bad as it may come across, he needed the funding, so that he needed to get him with Mabel.
And yes, I just found out that he did say pixelated.
Did he?
Yes. It says...
Oh, pixelated. Okay, yeah, not pixel.
Pixelated, yep. Being pixelated as opposed to pixelated means crazy. So he did say pixel on the first one, and then he said pixelated, and my brain went, what? Wait a minute. So I just find it funny that that's where my brain went. I don't know. It just...
Yes, I don't remember catching that offhand, but I think he said pixel, but
yeah, he did.
Pixelated would make sense.
He first said pixel, and that's what my brain went, wait, what?
But,
and then he said pixelated the second time. So there's 2 times he said that.
Meaning something different than what we're thinking,
Yeah. But I was like, what does he mean by that?
Like, I don't think it would have said pixelated. That wasn't a thing.
Did I hear that right? No, I didn't hear it right. And that's why I didn't ask you about it when it happened, because I was like, no, I didn't hear that right.
Oh, that's good to hear. I didn't catch that. And so, yeah, nice.
And also, I found it really cool. It's called goldenspiralmedia.com, and there's actually some bits in here. Really quick, I guess the actual first words spoken were, Mr. Watson, come here, I want you. So that was actually a homage of actually what was according to actual Bell's journal. And
I didn't think it was quite right the way they portrayed it, but again, I wasn't going to complain because it's not what the script said. It's not what the script said, so...
And it says it's been speculated that Bell and Mabel's marriage was more of a business than love. So he could procure funds for the telephone through her father.
Well, there you go.
So there you go. See, like, I was picking up on that. I was just like, it just seemed too rushed for me. And it kind of put a bad taste in my mouth for Alexander. Especially the way they portray her as really seeking that kind, loving male connection.
So I wish you had read that. Now it gives me kind of a sour taste on Alexander Graham Bell.
Exactly,
They fell in the real life. They thought they fell in love because she was a student of his, and they fell for each other. But yeah, come to find out that it was for funding. It kind of sours me on the man now.
Yep. It also says this episode was originally written where the Voyagers helped King Louis the XI. Is that the 5th?
XI would be the 6th.
The 6th? Before meeting Alexander Graham Bell and Mabel Hubbard, the script was altered to include the love story between Bogg and Mabel, and the idea with King Louis was discarded, most likely due to the slashed budget. The original script, The King and the Voyager, can still be found online for fans to purchase. There's also a transcribed pilot summary from Epilogue Magazine on the website page Voyagers Untold. Another cool thing that this website mentions is Mabel Hubbard's, and I was going to mention that. I really enjoy that time, that era's attire.
Right.
I loved her outfits. Especially the green one was my favorite dress. I thought it was really pretty. But it says that Mabel Hubbard's blue dress is the same dress worn by Princess Victoria in the episode Buffalo Bill and Annie Play the Palace.
Oh, okay.
So they're reusing a lot of stuff as well. They had no budget.
And as I said, I think, if I'm not mistaken, Bud Eric was funding a lot of this, and they knew their time was coming up to an end. And
I knew I liked Mabel, the actress, because she also played in History of the World Part 1. As a Vestual virgin. So I liked that. I don't know, to me, this one, it wasn't that I didn't like it. I just felt like there were some things I picked up on that were just a little bit too off kilter for me. So that's why it's kind of like a C plus at the most. At this point, Jeffrey's just, you think Jeffrey would be more pissed off at Bogg for falling in love with her, and then she, at the end, of course, you have that awe moment where he's like, would you have really, because Bogg was like, I'm going to settle down with this woman. I'm going to make some babies. And then, at the end, he's holding President Eisenhower in his, baby Eisenhower in his arms. And he's like, hey, Bogg, would you have really stayed back and had one of those with, Mabel and give up being a Voyager? And Bogg's like, miss out on things like this where he's holding the baby.
Right.
I don't know. It was good for what it was worth. It was enjoyable. I enjoyed the show. So it's funny. Now that we're getting to the end of it, you know what I'm missing?
What?
What do you think I'm missing?
Bat's breath.
Yes. Like, now I can't complain about it. They never say it.
Yeah, they only said it for a little bit of time.
And they moved away from it.
Maybe they heard you complain. I mean, but yeah, no, I like Bat's breath, so I kind of miss it myself. But
Bat's breath.
I just feel like it's gotten away from the way it was at the beginning.
Well, in these last half dozen episodes or so, they said they did make some changes where they're not, because previously they would go to a couple different places. Now they're kind of limiting that. They don't have the brief little interludes anymore, like they did with the one with like Benjamin Franklin where he was flying the kite.
Right.
They cut back on those a bit, and they're going for more of a in quotes mature audience.
Which makes me sad because the history geek in me really enjoyed those moments of, oh wait, that's so and so. Oh wait, they're going here.
Right.
I know I complained a little bit about it, but now being able to see both sides of the coin, I feel like it's just missing out on the original feel of what Voyagers was. I feel like it's lost itself somehow in
I can see that.
maturing.
I mean, they're trying to go for a more mature audience to get, because again, it didn't have the fan following that wanted.
Well, because what kid really wants to watch a show on, like, okay, what kid...
And it was kind of aimed at my age bracket at the time. But they're not looking for the kids at this point. They're looking to bring more adults in is what it was.
I feel like this could have been more of a TV show that you watched at school with your teacher, than something that you would have watched.
I was there. I think it was Sundays. I want to say I was there whenever it was on. I was there every week.
Was it at night?
Yeah.
Sunday night.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was on. It was like 8, 9 o'clock at night. I forget now, but
oh wow,
it was 8 o'clock at night. I want to say it was prime time.
That's really a late time to gear towards kids on a Sunday.
Well, I mean, I say kids. I mean, young teenagers is what they're aiming for. That's why Jeffrey was 12.
Yeah,
they were for around that age bracket. I think I was right in their sweet spot where they were looking for.
But you also love time travel,
right?
So like it was way up your alley.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean,
though this was one of the first. I think this was probably the first show I watched that had time travel.
Really?
I'm trying to think. Yeah, I don't think there was any shows before this that I watched it because I wasn't a big Star Trek fan. And not that Star Trek had a lot of time travel, but I mean, I wasn't. Yeah, there wasn't a lot of shows before this that I caught that had a lot of time travel. So this was probably
what
one
about Time Bandits or whatever it was from Disney?
That was after this.
Was it?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
That was, I want to say 84 or 85.
I was just curious.
Yeah. No, I'm wrong. It was 81.
Oh.
So it came out the year before this. But I don't think I watched it until after this.
Oh, okay.
I don't think I went to theater and watched that one. So it was probably after this when I watched it, more than likely. So yeah, I'm sticking with this. Was probably one of the first time travel shows that I watched.
And I could see how that would kind of get you kind of interested in it because it's fun. It really is. It's fun. This show has been a lot of fun.
Especially for a 12-year-old. I mean, now I'm 54. Looking back, started out 52, 54 when we started this. Looking back, I saw a lot more. I see a lot more holes and a lot more. I see the man behind the curtain, as it were.
Right.
Where back in 182 and 83 when I watched, I was 12, 13 years old. I didn't see a lot of, I see now I'm questioning, why is time messed up? Why,
because the evil leaper came and screwed things up. So.
And again, that's 54-year-old Aaron wants to see something like that. 12-year-old Aaron didn't really think about that at the time.
Well, because there was no evil Leaper.
Well, I mean, but I didn't really think about, why is time messed up? Why is Jeffrey...
Right.
Why does Jeffrey know how time's supposed to be if it's messed up?
Well,
I didn't think about all that as a 12-year-old.
If you think about it, that's like Wishbone or whatever it is, the dog that time travels into history.
Oh, is that what he does?
Yes,
I don't watch
I believe so. I know he was dressed up as Shakespeare. I never watched it. I had a friend who liked that show.
And that was outside of my... That was before when I was older, and it wasn't really a thing when the boys were young, so... I know of Wishbone, but yeah, and now that you mention, I think I've read about that somewhere. But yeah, that wasn't a thing for me. But yeah, so no, I enjoyed this episode more than you did, I think. But now that you mention it, though, yeah, it is not the episode so much. It's Thomas himself that I don't care for. But
see, he wasn't a time traveler anyways. He was a daydreamer.
And that came out in 95, so apparently it was around the time about the boys.
Yeah.
They just didn't get into it. So
I guess he was a daydreamer. He didn't time travel, but... So that's pretty much all I've got to say. I mean, I know these episodes are pretty short because there's not a lot to analyze and break down, but...
Yeah, it wasn't made for, a 40 and 50-year-old husband and wife to sit around and talk about. It was just Quantum Leap. Right, but...
Boy, has that gotten a following. But, no, I mean, all in all, solid C, maybe C+.
That's a fair rating. I'd give probably a B minus B. I'd give it a little higher because...
You're very kind to this kind of thing.
I am. I love the show, so I'm a little more kind than...
I'm interested in seeing the rest of it, and I'm ready.
I hope so. There's only another episode to go.
I'm ready, but see, I'm ready to wrap it up.
Right.
Like, I'm ready to wrap it up, but I'm wishing there could have been more.
Right.
But I'm wishing there could have been more like the earlier stuff. More slapstick comedy into it. It's just gotten too...
It's getting a little too more mature.
Yeah, I guess so.
That's what they're going for.
I want my kids' show back. I do. I want my PBS kids' show back. And I feel like what I want to do is when we're all done, I just want to watch it to enjoy it. Now that
You've seen all episodes.
We've watched it, and I've had to really pay attention and think about what I'm watching. Now I just want to go back and watch it for brain dead.
Yeah. No, that's very good.
Yeah. And enjoy it and...
Well, that says something that, I mean, we've watched it for the podcast and we've kind of had to analyze it and look for mistakes or flaws or, problems we have with it. So it's saying something that you want to actually sit down and just watch it just for the enjoyment of it this time.
Yeah.
Because again, you're not, as we talked about previously, we're on the Starbright Project, you're not a big TV watcher.
No, I'm not.
So for you to say that you want to sit down and watch the whole thing just to watch it, that says something. That's
to me,
I think it shows about the quality.
Yeah, and this is one of those shows. I gotta kind of.
No, we're fine there. We're gonna stop right here. No.
But this is one of those shows. So like you said, I'm not a huge TV watcher. However, there are TV shows that can play in the background while I do other stuff and come in and out of it. Those are my favorite TV shows because I don't care for the deep impact TV shows.
Right.
Like when you're watching them, like for instance, some of your like not firefighter shows, but like your 911s and those kind of things. I get sucked into them like a train wreck. And then I'll watch them with you for I'll be like, no, don't watch it because I want to see what happens to the next episode because they are episodes that lead into each other. And I love that, but I hate it at the same time because I am not the person who likes to sit down and watch episode after. I don't binge watch TV unless it's something on occasion. So for me, I like TV shows that are one and dones, like episodes that are one and done.
Episodic shows.
Yes, because
kind of like the original Quantum Leap was.
Yes.
Whereas the new one's more of a serial where the episodes tie into one another and
what happens
you want to watch it one after another.
I'm sure I have a form of ADHD. I'm Aaron's nodding his head yes. I'm pretty sure I'm an undiagnosed ADHDer. So for me, I go in and out of watching a show. I can watch it, pick up my phone, and then I zone out, and then I come back in, and then I'm lost. So the episodic ones are hard for me, or I fall asleep because I crash. And then as soon as it's over, guess what? I'm wide awake again, which is so annoying.
What I miss? Like 40 minutes of a 42-minute show?
Yep, I get through the intro and maybe 10 minutes, if that, of the first part of the episode, and then I'm out. And then as soon as it's over,
yep, she's up and ready to go.
I'm ready up and to go. It's like
I'm going to bed.
I need to rewatch it. He's like, no, I'm going to bed.
Feel free, but
there's been times where he's rewatched it with me, but that's like on a weekend because he has to go to bed at like right at
10 o'clock
night time.
Because I'm an old man, I gotta get up early.
But it's his night time. But anyways, no, like I said, I want to rewatch it. I feel like this is definitely one of those where if I had easier access to it besides the DVD, and I could see myself putting it on and watching it, falling asleep, waking up, and watching wherever it was left off and not feeling disconnected from it.
Right.
Or what did I miss? I like that about TV shows like that. So I'm looking forward to, like I said, watching it. I get excited when people mention it on like Facebook groups and all of that because I feel like it's one of those not everybody knows about, but those who do know it,
The ones that know, you're in a special club.
Yes, we have members only jackets, but I enjoyed it. I'm thoroughly enjoying it. I feel like we're going to have to replace this show with something else, but I don't know what that else could be.
Well, there's always Travelers. You enjoyed them? All right.
No, I don't want to do that. We've already seen that, and I'm good.
You mean like a TV like a time travel type show, or?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know if we need to start doing 80s. We started an 80s podcast, but it didn't go anywhere because
I just don't have time
we didn't have time to do 3 different ones on our own, and I don't have to. I was in school, so I couldn't edit, and I'm too much of a.
And I've got a million shows anyways to do, so I just don't have time to.
Not like he doesn't keep adding shows on and on and on, but I don't know. I feel like we need to find something else to fill in this void, even though it seems like we have kind of gotten away from recording as frequently as we have, just with life in general. And it seems like once our kid went into high school and became part of the band, it's been kind of harder to record to. And our older son's getting older, and he makes it difficult to go to bed. But I think we've finally gotten that under control a little bit more. But I know that's kind of an odd one. But no, I'm looking forward to finding something else eventually to record. And I'm sure we'll talk more about that later on in the next.
And if I remember, it was on this show or on the Starbright, I told you. You start podcasting, I want to do something else.
Oh,
I told you. I warned you.
Yeah, you did.
No, not me. Here you are. Let's find something else to record.
No, you said I was going to have my own show.
Give it time. Give it time.
No, I'm
Give it time.
Never. Shh. Never. No, I'm never ever going to do that. What I do, talk about things by myself? You know me. I'm not a what do you call it? What's the word?
I have no idea what the hell you're talking about. Solitary person?
Yeah, I'm not a solitary person. Aaron, when he's sick, he can go into the bedroom and be gone from people, where I'm I have to still be around people.
I prefer not being around people.
I'm polar opposite from that.
You know what? You can find people to record with. The internet allows you to.
And I'm not that person either.
My G.I. Joe show. I talked to 3, 4, 5 different people all the way from the United States all the way to Australia.
Yeah, no, I'm not.
So there's people all over the world that you can seek out, and you can talk about anything. You can find anybody that likes anything.
That's one reason why I wasn't great at web and graphic design. It wasn't that I wasn't a good designer or I didn't have the creative eye. It was I wouldn't put myself out there to bid for jobs or anything like that because I didn't like that competition.
Right.
And I still to this day full on regret, not knowing who Deborah Pratt was when we recorded
over on the Starbright Project.
That, to me, I I feel like I almost want Hayden, and I think we need to talk to Hayden about this, and I know this is completely not related, but I feel like I would love, and I'm sure she's too busy now with everything picking up again for her, but I would love for Hayden to get her back on our podcast just one more time so I can grovel and plead for forgiveness for my stupidity.
You know what? That was been like 3 years ago we talked to her.
Yeah.
And she probably doesn't even remember you. And meanwhile, over the last 3 years, whatever it's been, you're obsessing about it. You're like, you're worried about how Deborah thinks of you.
Yes.
And meanwhile, Deborah's like, who? Was I on your podcast before? Did I talk to you people?
Yeah, but it's just kind of like, you're the dumbass who didn't remember. Like,
no, she probably doesn't remember you. No offense to you, but she probably doesn't even remember you.
You know what, though? Because I feel like I pissed her off.
No, I don't think you did.
I don't know. I felt so stupid. But, no, like, literally, and that's something we'll have to talk to Hayden about, because I don't think I've expressed it, but I don't think Hayden understands the severity of my regret for that. So, but no, all in all, I know I said it again, but I'll say it one more time. This has been a fun show to watch. It's really heartbreaking to know what happened to Eric Hexum. I'm so proud of myself for picking out that he was related to Punky Brewster right off the top of the head.
And again, you're jumping around as you're talking. You said you're talking about Eric Hexum, and then all of a sudden you jump over to, I'm trying to think of his name now. You jump over to Minneapolis without mentioning who you're talking about.
Sorry.
So yeah, you're saying you feel bad about what happened to John Eric, and you're happy that you realize he was related to Punky. No, John's not related to.
You're right.
Punky.
No, Mino Pelusi or
something like that. I
gotta go back and look at it.
Mino Pelusi.
Yeah.
Is how I'm pronouncing
it. But no, I'm excited to know that I picked up on that. My Punky Brewster radar was going off like crazy, but
anyways, we've talked about Starbright, which over Quantum Leap. We've talked about, you pissing off Deborah Pratt. Is there anything about barriers of sound you want to talk about, Michelle? Any other thoughts on barriers of sound?
That. Like I said, all in all, an okay episode. Was it my favorite? No. Was it my least favorite? No. Did I feel like it was rushed? Yes. But there's been worse. And I really liked the actress. However, the character, not as much. So, how about you, Aaron? Last words, last thoughts?
Yeah, no, it was, like I said earlier, I liked it better than you did. I enjoyed this episode. Yeah, the actress. Yeah, I thought Lou Mulford, odd name, but yeah, I thought she was a very beautiful woman.
Very.
I don't blame Bogg for falling in love with her. Yeah, she was very beautiful. She did a great job. I thought she did, for not being deaf, yeah, she could have maybe exaggerated it a bit more because you didn't catch it, which is odd because I'm a little deaf and I caught her accent, if you will, in quotes. I'm already deaf, so you can't. I caught that, so.
I think she did that.
I caught it. So. Oh, and I do want to give a shout out that I pointed out to Michelle when we were watching it, the waiter in here, Dan Frischman.
Oh, yeah.
He was also on the TV show Head of the Class. I'm like, he looks familiar. I just look to see who he was. Oh, that's where he's from. He was one of the nerds from the Head of the Class.
He was the guy with the glasses.
Yeah. So, yeah, this was one of his earlier shows that he did. It wasn't his first, though. He was in Facts of Life. He was in half a dozen shows before this. But yeah, it was just interesting seeing someone that I know from another show. I always like those little things.
I have to say this, Mabel's father, only because this is the only reason why I'm mentioning this, is that he was on Superman's 50th anniversary special.
Oh, okay.
So, just because of Superman, I wanted to put that in there.
Yes, her father's not listed on IMDb, so I'm not sure who he was offhand, but... Oh, yeah, he was. I'm sorry. Oh, John Randolph. Okay.
Yep. He was in National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation.
Yeah, he was the dad. He was Clark's dad.
And Reed Morgan was a cop, but he also played a cop in Back to the Future. Just for...
Oh, and I forgot to look at that. There was also... And again, it doesn't matter to you because you're not a Back to the Future fan. But the scene... I
wouldn't say I'm not a fan. It's just you've made me not...
Oh, don't blame me. Don't blame me.
One of those shows...
It's a great movie that needs to be watched all the time. But we were talking. Oh, the scene where Phineas and Mabel was walking in front of a courthouse.
Yeah.
That's the courthouse from Back to the Future.
Oh, okay.
But I was going to point it out to you, but you don't care at this point about it. So
it also says that Watson was in Night Court, Third Rock from the Sun, and God, the Devil, and Ball.
He was a producer on Night Court, as I was telling you earlier. Linwood Boomer, who was Watson. He was a producer. He did a lot of producing. Oh, he did 10 projects. One of them being Night Court, the original Night Court. He was a producer, executive producer on Third Rock from the Sun, which we watched for a while, and Malcolm in the Middle. So yeah, he's done some writing, he's done some acting, he's done some producing. He's 11 acting credits. He was in an episode of that Santa Clarita Diet, the vampire one we started watching, we never finished. He was in an episode of that, Fantasy Island, Little House on the Prairie. So he's got a dozen shows under his belt. So, but anything else you want to say about this episode of Voyagers, Michelle?
Nope, that's it.
Well, I guess that's going to do it for this episode. Like I say, we're counting down to the last 3. I'm thinking 3 episodes are going to be left after this, unless we come something else to throw in there. But so we've got 3 episodes left. So thank you guys that are still with us. That's stuck around this long. Until next month.
Bat's breath.
If you want to learn more about the Wright brothers, Eddie Rickenbacker, and the early days of flying, take a voyage to your nearest public library. It's all in books.
Thank you for listening. This has been VoyagersCast, a proud member of the Hitcast Network family of shows. All copyrights belong to respective owners, and no copyright infringement is intended or implied. We're just a huge fan of time travel shows, and Voyagers in particular. Be sure to join us monthly as we watch where Phineas and Jeffrey land next. And if you enjoy this show, check out the other shows on the Hitcast Network. The first week of the month, we have Head Speaks and the Starbright Project. Head Speaks is where I talk about comic books, TVs, movies, books, anything geeky. The Starbright Project is where Michelle and I look at another great time travel series, Quantum Leap, and then we'll talk about it. The second week of the month brings you G.I. Joe, a Real American Headcast, and this show, VoyagersCast. Over on my G.I. Joe show, we look at the G.I. Joe comics and cartoons from the late 80s. The third week of the month, we drop both Task Force X and Retrospect to the 80s. Task Force X is a show that looks at the Suicide Squad and Checkmate books from the late 80s. Retrospect to the 80s, surprisingly enough, is a show where Michelle and I, and possibly some guests, look back at what we think is the greatest decade there was, the 80s. Finally, the fourth week of the month, I release the Starman Manhunter Adventure Hour and Bravo Team. Starman Manhunter is a show where I look at the Will Payton Starman and the Mark Shaw Manhunter books, both from the late 80s. Yes, I have a time period. Bravo Team is my sister show to the G.I. Joe team, or maybe brother show, where we look at anything else G.I. Joe related. We'll be back next month to join our friends Phineas and Jeffrey as they leap into, well, the unknown. Until then, remember, may your landings always be soft
and your lights always be green.